Think about like a James Bond movie where James Bond is trying to get into the bad guy's hideout. The bad guy has his hideout super secured with multiple levels of security. Bond defeats one level, gets a little inside the hideout, and then there's one more trap. He defeats that, and there's one more. And finally, he defeats all of that and encounters the bad guy who says, "Welcome, Mr. Bond. I've been expecting you." And James Bond goes, "Dude, I nearly died right at trap 1 and I barely made it through all those levels. How the heck could you be expecting me here?" See, that's the thing with security. You just cannot put up one layer of defense and say, "Okay, I've done my job." When you want to secure a system like a web application, you have to put a lot of thought into it, build multiple layers of security, and even anticipate that some of them might get hacked. So you need to think like a James Bond villain is what I'm saying basically. But for those of us Java developers that are the good guys, there is Spring Security. In this video, you will learn what Spring Security is really all about and why you might want to consider using it for securing your web applications. Here's the problem with security. As application developers, we just don't want to do it. It's not fun, right? We like building new things and features, something that's directly user impacting. Hey, look at this cool new feature. That's fun, but security is not so fun. So what ends up happening is security is usually an afterthought. More so because it's not only stopping you from creating something new for your users, it's also something that could potentially cause trouble or frustration to your users. So why do we have to do this? My web server has security built in. Why should I, as an application developer, need to deal with security? Well, here's the thing. All the operating system level security, the JVM level security, the app server security, that's all kind of handled for you already. What we're talking about here is application level security. You might be able to lock down everything else and make all those things fully secure, but here you're building an application or APIs that you have kind of opened up and it allows users to use. So for most applications, you have to implement security at an application level. You need to think of what are the things that your users can do in the context of your application. What's the functionality that you want to allow and to whom? What's the kind of data that you want to expose and to whom? That's the kind of security we're talking about here. And the biggest thing that makes security a challenge is this. Security threats are constantly evolving and morphing. This is kind of like the biggest reason why it's so hard to keep up with security. What you need is for security to be maintained by a bunch of security nerds who spend all their waking hours thinking about how applications can be made more secure and how to prevent hackers from defeating the security of your application. Because guess what? There are certain smart hackers spending all their waking hours thinking about how they can hack into your application. Basically, what you need is not to handle security yourself, but to hire like a watchman or a security guard. Say you want to safeguard a particular building to allow only the right people to enter. So you decide to hire a watchman or a security guard who stands in front and intercepts any visitors. Anytime somebody wants to enter, the security guard asks them two quintessential questions asked by security guards over the years all over the world. Who are you and what do you want? Spring Security is like hiring this full-time security guard who sits in front of your web application and examines every request to your application and asks these two basic questions. Who is this request from and what do they want? So Spring Security is an application framework that helps you do application level security. What does that mean? A bunch of things actually. You can say, "Hey Spring Security, give me login and logout functionality." Or you can say, "Hey Spring Security, I want only these two URLs to be publicly accessible. These two URLs of my application, I want only logged in users to access. This particular URL, I want it accessible only by someone who is not only logged in, but also has admin access." You know, this kind of stuff is referred to as application security. This is access control specific to your application. Now, how does it do it? Spring Security lets you configure it to your application's needs, so you can have it do the right things that you want. Because you see, the need for security itself is very common, but how that security needs to be achieved isn't common. It varies widely between applications. For this reason, Spring Security has been built to have a lot of flexibility, and it is very, very, very likely it'll be able to handle your particular security needs. Another benefit of Spring Security is that it can handle a lot of the common security vulnerabilities right out of the box. Just by adding Spring Security to your app, you get protection from a bunch of vulnerabilities like session fixation, clickjacking, cross-site request forgery, and all that stuff. Spring Security handles all those vulnerabilities, so you don't have to. The other benefit of Spring Security is that it's very widely adopted in the industry. Although it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Since it's so widely adopted, people are probably constantly trying to find vulnerabilities in it. However, considering the usage, even if there is a vulnerability found, I'm pretty sure it'll immediately get patched. After all, you cannot achieve security based on secrecy or hiding your vulnerabilities. You get effective security only by removing your vulnerabilities and having nothing exploitable there to begin with. Here are some of the things you can do with Spring Security. You can do username password authentication. You can have your application ask for username and password before letting people authenticate. You can also do a bunch of single sign-on stuff like Okta and LDAP. You have app-level authorization, which goes in addition to authentication. If you don't know what they are, check out the next video in the series. You can also do intra-app authorization using technologies like OAuth. You can basically have applications authorize with other applications. You can also do microservice security, which is basically when you have a bunch of microservices that are talking to each other, how do you make sure that one microservice exposes certain APIs only for this one other microservice and not for this other microservice? Well, you can handle all those things. And then you also have method level security, where you're basically securing not just URLs and APIs, you're securing methods and objects in your code, which is much more granular and much more powerful. As you can see, Spring Security can be pretty versatile and powerful. In order to learn and use Spring Security effectively, there are 5 core terms and concepts that you'll need to understand as they are repeated over and over in your Spring Security journey. Watch this video next to learn those 5 terms and really understand what they mean. I'll see you there.